Okay, cool. So how's everybody doing today? Drop something in the comments. I appreciate, first of all, you all being on here. Also, want to drop in the comments, how long has everybody been in real estate? You just drop it in the chat real quick, just so we can get an idea of who all is on the call right now. There we go, 18 years, 4 years, 20 years, year and a half, 15, all over the place, right? So all over the place as far as some of us have experienced a shift in 2008, some of us haven't. For some of us, you've been through multiple recessions, multiple shifts. For some of us, this is our very first time going through something like this. So what I want to say really though is that the first thing, this is a different shift than it was in 2008. This is a much different shift because unlike what we went through in 2008, it was more of an economic shift in terms of basically being that housing crash, right? We had a housing crash, housing market crash, economy crash. Now what we're experiencing is a global pandemic. It's nothing like we've ever experienced before. And it's strange what we're going through. It's the fact that we are going through something where the entire world is going through it, not just us, right? And so with that said, it can be scary for some people. It's scary times for some people. We live in a world where 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, 65% of small businesses break even or lose money. You know, it's scary times for a lot of people, and we're going to see a lot of people in our industry get out of the business. That doesn't have to be you, right? And the reason it doesn't have to be you is because there are still opportunities within this. Would everybody agree with that there are opportunities that can come from this shift that we're going through right now? If you think so, drop it in the chat. Because with great crisis comes opportunity. And so what we're seeing right now, and what we want to cover today is exactly what our team is doing to get homes sold and how we're continuing to thrive in this market and not just make it about surviving. So who in here is feeling like their business is suffering a little bit? Raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Because I think at some point we all kind of hit that threshold, right? Like you look at it now, we're in week 4 essentially for our team of working from home. And the first couple of weeks, the first week was kind of fun. It was different. There was, it was just new. We're using Zoom calls like crazy. We're doing all of this different types of lead generation. Week 2 then reality starts to set in that this could be our new norm for a little while. Week 3 sets in, people start pulling back. Now we're in week 4, and this is really where it comes down to, are you going to pick up the pace, or are you going to allow this to sink in and be like, you know what, this isn't for me? Because if you turn the media on right now, everything is doom and gloom, right? But what we know is that last month, in the month of March, over 4,500 homes still went pending. Massive number. All right, so the fact that the 4,500 homes still went under contract in the month of March tells us that there's still business out there. We just have to go get it. And to hit your goal, you may only need 1 of those 4,500 for that month, or you may need 2, or you may need 10, or whatever it is. My point is there's still a lot of opportunity within this. And I'm feeling like right here, it says, felt that I was just gaining momentum, still working, but should be busier. I think we all feel that way. I think that, like for our team, we had a goal of, we wanted to hit $60 million in our goal this year in sales. Now, I'm not a believer in lowering the target. I believe that our target is still $60 million, and we're going to do everything in our power to hit that target. Right? Will we hit it? I don't know for certain, but I'm going to make sure that we do everything possible to continue to push toward that target, because there's still business happening. Same way in 2008. In 2007, 35,000 homes sold. In 2008, 30,000 homes sold. Difference being how many people got out of the industry. How many people quit the industry because they said, oh, the market's terrible. There were still 30,000 opportunities that happened in between 2008, 2009, 2010. Opportunity is always there. It's what we decide to shift and focus our mindset on. So as we get into this shift, feel free to drop questions in there. We'll be answering questions as we move through this. I've got team members on here, Ryan Jackson, Geoff King, and Joe Geary. They all, like a lot of you on the call, are newer to the industry as well. Most of them have been in the industry 3 years or less. This is the first kind of pivot or market shift they're feeling or facing. So I wanted to bring them on this call so they can relate in what they're doing right now and the activities they're doing to make sure that we're going to thrive during this time, not just maintain or fall back. So we're going to go through, flip back to the other slide. So there we go. Flip back to the first slide. Here we go, mindset and action. So if you read the shift book, mindset and action, First thing you have to have is a mental shift. And the second thing you have to have is an action shift. The mental shift is probably the hardest thing because right now, mentally for a lot of us, we're working from home, we're working by ourselves. I truly believe that there is strength in working with a team and working with each other, or even just being present in the market center. You have the ability to feed off other people's energy. Now, all of a sudden, as you can see, I'm at home, we're all working from home, and you lose that. So it's easy to fall into old habits, to old traps, to an old mental shift or a mindset. This is where we really have to be thinking about what's important to me and my goals, right? Because we know with crisis comes great opportunity. And so first thing you have to do is establish your mental shift. What are you doing right now to mentally keep yourself engaged and keep yourself in the game? So what I mean by that is what do your mornings look like? Right? Like, are you just rolling out of bed now at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock? And when business was as usual, like when it was current 2 months ago, were you getting up at 5 a.m.? Now all of a sudden you're getting up at 8 a.m. Right? What do your daily habits look like? I truly believe we're formed by our habits. Our habits are what shape us. So you have to keep your habits right. Get up at the same time, take a shower, work out, read, do everything you're supposed to be doing to get your mindset right, so that when we do come out of this shift and we're able to get back to business as usual, and it may never get back to business as usual. That's an important thing we talked about on our call the other day, was that we may be in this for another year. We have no idea. Hopefully it's 30 days, but maybe it's 60 days. Maybe it's 200 days. We have no clue. So it's going to be super important that we get our mental shift put together right now. And the next thing is, once you get your mindset right, it's all about action. You've got to take action. If you were, somebody has said here, instead of Monday through Friday, new AM routine, workday still begins at 7. Perfect. Yeah, Dina, keep doing that, right? You have to keep doing that and keep your mindset right and keep your routine set. Because if you start sleeping in later, you start going to bed later, everything's going to get out of whack, and all of a sudden you're going to wake up. And when this thing officially ends, if it ends, you might not have any business, and that's no place to be. I was on a call yesterday with Geary, and he said, this is business as usual in an unusual way. So business as usual in an unusual way. People are still listing homes, buyers are still buying homes are still selling. We have to shift the way we're conducting our business. And the way we conducted our business a month ago or 2 months ago is different from the way we have to conduct our business now. And it's not necessarily in a bad way. Using Zoom technology like this, we can reach more people. You can set a listing appointment right now and get on a Zoom call with somebody within that. You can set a Zoom call and say, hey, let's jump on a Zoom call, send you a link right now. You can set listing appointments quickly. You're not spending drive time going to homes. Like, there are positives that will come from this. It's just a matter of what our mental state is and what kind of action we're taking. And to my point again, if what you were doing previously was working, it may not work today. You may need to increase activity and do a lot more. The next thing I want to talk about is expense management. This is all about remargining your business. I have a couple of businesses I run, and the first thing we did is cut 20% across the board. You have to cut expenses in a time like this. Now, I'm not talking about cutting things out that are working. If you have a pillar of business that's working and generating you an ROI and a good ROI, you don't want to get rid of that. What you want to be cutting are the things that you don't necessarily need. Like for us, as soon as we shifted into this 3 weeks ago, we moved in from a standpoint of looking at any kind of creative projects we wanted to do, we eliminated. Now is not the time to get creative. Now is the time to focus on what works and double down on the things that work. So if you're thinking about putting creative marketing plans together and creating new process and adding a new pillar of business and all of this stuff and spending money on that, it might not be the time to do it. Cut 20% across the board, and it doesn't matter if it's $9.99 or if it's $199 or it's $10,000 a month. Whatever it is, you need to be looking at each expense and cutting it. And so there are things we cut out that we didn't even know we were spending on, like $14 a month, $9 a month, little subscriptions that you sign up for, $79 a month. And we cut 20% across the board, across all companies, to make sure that we can financially be in a spot to continue to pay our people. Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important. How do I not only survive this and thrive, but I need to keep my people employed as well? And it would be financially irresponsible of me to not go in and cut every single expense that was unnecessary. And get your team on board. If you're running the team, you have to get your team on board around this too. Like, we need to be thinking about and auditing every single expense that we're taking on right now. Do we need to do it, or is there another way that we can go about it without spending that money, no matter what the dollar amount is? and always work from a position of profitability. That's why right now in times like this, if you're a business that's a healthy business and you have a lot of reserves and cash reserves, you're not as concerned about that. You still want to cut expenses because you don't know how long this is going to last. But if you have 6 months in the bank or 6 years in the bank or 60 years in the bank where you don't have to worry about it, you're in a good spot. And if you're not in that position today, one way you can get in that position is by learning what we're going through now, because what we're going through now, we will go through again at some point. There are always market shifts. And I don't necessarily mean we're going to go through this kind of global pandemic with a health crisis like this or a virus. What I am saying is that at some point in time, this market will shift again, right? 2008, it happened. It happened again now. It's going to happen again at some point, and you need to set yourself up in a position to thrive during times like this. If we start seeing, and again, we're in a different market than we were in '08 because we're not having a housing crisis where there's an abundance of REOs and short sales. We're seeing right now, our crisis we're seeing is limited inventory. It's almost a reverse market of what we went through in 2008. But at the same time, there's still a lot of opportunity. And somebody posted that it's getting more difficult. Let's see here. Something about buyers. Buyers are getting more nervous. 100%. Buyers and sellers are scared. They're nervous. I agree with that. So we need to be working on scripting around that, letting buyers know that right now interest rates are still very close to all-time lows. Buyer affordability is the highest it's ever been. For a seller, we're at under a 3-month supply of inventory. That means we're in a strong seller's market. This is the best time to capitalize on getting your home sold to get the most money for your home. Because what we're seeing is in March, list to sale price ratios, in February, 97%, now they're 99%. People are getting 2% more for their money today than they were a month ago. These are all numbers to keep in mind that we can pass along to our sellers. And also with the whole thing about maybe not as many buyers are out looking for homes, but the buyers that are out looking for homes are very serious about needing to buy a home. If they're going out and looking at homes right now, they're not just going out because it's a nice sunny day. They're going out because they need to buy a house, and those are the people we want in our listings. So any questions about expense management there as far as what we need to be cutting? Drop them in there. I'm going to have Ryan jump on right now and start talking about leverage and how we're leveraging our team and what you can be doing to leverage yourself as well to start building your business during a time like this.
Absolutely. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
All right. So leverage. This is a huge part of our business, and leverage means something different to each one of us. Whether you're a solo agent, you're a partner, or you're a team leader, drop in the chat an example of something that you leverage out on a daily basis or a weekly basis that helps you in your business. That way other people can kind of get an idea of what everybody's doing for leverage. And so we come to think that leverage is always an out-of-pocket expense. However, we're going to discuss ways of cutting costs while maintaining leverage, but putting focus back in your business. And so, now with the shift, it's time for us to, we have to roll up our sleeves and we have to do, everything we can right now possible to make sure that we survive through this shift. And so we all have to work smarter, and we all have to work harder. This shift that we're in has created new objections, like Michael was saying, and in the chat was that people are nervous. They're not necessarily wanting to move forward. They want to wait until this is done. So it's creating these new objections and obstacles that we haven't seen in the last several years. The virus, it has changed our business, and we have to grasp that change, and we have to move forward and evolve with what the shift is kind of handing us right now. And so, we've got to really evaluate which resources and services must stay and what services must go. And, Michael was talking about cutting out the 20%. If you're not getting a return on your leverage, it needs to go because it's not profitable for your business. So we need to consider how effective it is and how efficient these tools are necessary to make your business profitable. And so cutting expenses doesn't necessarily mean cutting quality. We know that as professional realtors, we have to deliver a top-notch experience regardless of the market, the conditions, our buyers or our sellers. They expect us to be number one, top-notch realtors, and they don't want to have any issues. And so that is something that we can't cut out. And so it demands that we get the job done regardless of whatever our budget or the money available to do it. And so, we have change right now, and almost everyone resists change, and some even consider change bad. I mean, pretty much if anything, comes up unexpected, it throws our world into a whirlwind, and you don't necessarily, adapt as fast as you should. So the change and the speed of change always puts pressure on us to do things better and yet more cost effective. So you're thinking, how can I run my business, cut costs, and still provide great service? And basically what it is we have to take a look at our business and how it's running and how effective it is. All right, Joe. And so how do you create leverage, in this market? And it's going to go back to focusing on the basics. And this is the number one foundation of any of your business. You probably heard of an agent who or a team that they had massive years, and they were killing it for year after year. And then all of a sudden they had years of little growth and then became less. And in a lot of cases, what happened is these agents just stopped doing what worked for them. The book, The One Thing, they abandoned the principles of their business and they moved away from it because they were making a lot of money, and they put money into places that necessarily wasn't profitable. And Michael, in your years of experience, I know you've used this example a lot. What do you think about kind of that mentality of going back to the basics?
I think it's huge. I think that's what we all need to do right now. So right now it's double down on lead generation efforts, and it's not just doubling down essentially on the time on the dialer. It's how do you double your focus? How do you get so focused right now on what you need to do and doing it consistently every single day that you're the person that comes out of this, that your business is thriving? There are going to be so many people that come out of this and they're going to retreat and contract and pull back, right? Like right now, your ship's floating. There are boats on this, people on this call right now, there are boats just that are taking on water, right? Don't let your boat take on water. And you're the key to your success. Focus on the basics and get really good. I was on a call, the call with Geary yesterday. He talked about the database, and he said the mind share, he said how we should be over communicating with our database. The mind share that we collect today is the market share we enjoy tomorrow. So the mind share that we gain today is the market share that we enjoy tomorrow. What he means by that is, how do you become relevant to your database right now? And I know Keller Williams talks about database a lot, but there's so much gold in the people that already know us, like us, and trust us. Now's not the time to get fancy and creative on things. It's to focus and double down the activities on what we know works, talking to people that know us, like us, and trust us, and really putting people at ease right now about the real estate market as well. Because if you turn on the news, it's doom and gloom. And that's all the information a lot of people are doing. How do you kind of be that voice, that breath of fresh air for people, letting people know homes are still selling, interest rates are still low, people are getting all-time highs for their pricing right now. They're getting at list price, essentially. How do you be that person, letting them know that homes are still selling and things are still happening? It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you've built your business on a certain aspect of real estate, whether it's expireds or FSBOs, or you have a strong database, or you're like our team where we do a ton of outbound calls, you need to keep focusing on those tasks that make you the most money, because those are where your opportunities in a shift like this that is going to propel you when the market does return. And so now that you've focused on the basics, the next thing we have to do is we have to identify your business priorities. Just stay on the same slide, Joe. And so the way you're going to do this is you're going to sit down and identify what are the priorities for the rest of 2020. And we do this at the Nett Group. It's something we do every week. And it's basically, we use our 411 tool and weekly meetings to address that. So 4 weeks, 1 week, 1 day, we write down our goals, and it gives us a clear vision of where your business is and where it needs to be. And this is more vital than anything right now, because there's going to be agents out there that don't have either closings set up, closings are delayed. you need to write your goals down, and not only for just this week or this next month, but plan out the year and how you're going to accomplish those goals. Because it's going to give you a clear vision of where your business is and those tasks that you do at a high level, what how much time and effort you need to put in those tasks, and basically where your business is going to go when you accomplish those tasks. So in this shift, you must reevaluate your goals every week. And if you're not accomplishing those goals or tasks, your effort has to increase each week to maintain the output or the accomplishing your task, so you can hit your goals for the end of 2020. And when do they need to be done? Like any goal, like Gary Keller says, your goals should be written down and it should always have a timeline. And so, you have to put a time on them. And when time is associated with a task or goal, it gives you a clear vision of what aspects of your business is working and what is not. So if you dive into a task and a month later, it hasn't resulted in any listing appointments, any buyer's appointments, or any contracts, that task needs to be reevaluated, and maybe you refocus on a different task that's going to make you more money. And lastly is who is the best person to do them? You need to define who is going to do what in your business. If you're a solo agent, you're going to be taking a lot of these tasks on yourself to accomplish your goal. And if you're a team leader, you have to evaluate, what members can do these at a high level day in and day out. And these are the people that you're going to have to lean on and give the most responsibility to. In the chat, who is the number one person that you lean on as far as in your business? I know a lot of people will say administrators, or maybe you have a coach, but who is giving you the most accountability that's going to keep, these focus on the basics, your business priorities? Who's going to help you the most in your business? So you got Coach Nash, that's awesome. So it looks, yes, you really have to, in times like this, accountability is huge. And that's where you have to really rely on people to identify those business priorities, those goals, to make sure that you're working at a high level. All right, Joe, we can go to the next one. And so we all know, it's ingrained in Keller Williams. We have 186 tasks that need to accomplish on a daily basis to make money. And however, there's only 6 that actually make us money. The 180 tasks are tasks that should be leveraged out as possible. And we know these, and this is what you should be focusing on. The basics is lead generation, setting appointments, showing homes, getting agreements, writing contracts, and getting to closing. Those 6 in the shift that we're in is the most important task that we can focus on, because that's what's going to help us survive. All right, Joe. And so how can you leverage, 180 tasks, and so, the first one, a lot of people have administrators. You can hire contract to close virtual assistants. We have a sign runner, we have our own stager, professional photographer. And, at the Nett group, these first 4 tasks are provided for each of our team members. And so Michael has set systems up in place so that I can focus on those 6 tasks, and that my leverage is taking care of all those tasks. And when you have the ability to just focus on those 6 tasks, your day is really defined, it's structured, and it's goal oriented. And what that allows us to do, when you are so leveraged, we have agents on our team that consistently have between 10 and 20 listings at a time. And when you're leveraged, you're not completely stressed out when you have, I think Joe had more than 19 listings at one time. You wouldn't know that he had more than 2 or 3, because he's so leveraged, and each one of our team members are so leveraged that we can focus on those 6 tasks. And we're kind of encountering this shift. We're feeling it, but our days are defined. We're very structured, and we're very goal oriented. And number 5, 6, 7, and 8, if you don't have a budget for an admin, if your kids are home, college kids, there are a ton of kids home from college or, out of high school that are looking for, hourly pay, or utilize your kids at home. Mortgage companies that offer flyer designs. I know USA Mortgage, they do printouts so cheap. So instead of spending 4 hours designing a brochure, leverage that out to someone that's going to do it for you. And then you pay a small cost for printing. The last two are really important. If you're a solo agent and you need to leverage something out, there's also other agents that have administrators hired that are feeling the pinch. Try to co-partner with agents and maybe like cost share that administrator. Maybe it's 10 hours a week. And that way, you can reach out to these agents and see if there's an opportunity to where you can get some of your business leveraged in this time. And last is reach out to the Market Center for help. They're going to be a huge help in this time because they're going to know who's struggling, who might need some help with something. There's no shame in asking for help. They're going to be a huge resource for you to see if you can partner someone, maybe even join a team to where you can be leveraged, you can focus on your business, and then you come out of this on the other side and be successful. All right, Joe. And so up markets conceal and down markets reveal. And we've been in an up market for a long, long time, and it's concealed a lot of holes or gaps in our business. And so what I mean is that, we've got used to this job being pretty easy, as far as if you get a listing, it sells really quick. And now that the shifts happened, all of a sudden now we're revealing gaps in our business that the great market concealed. And so you have to start with yourself. You have to look at yourself. You have to analyze anything and anyone it's going to maximize your own productivity and are doing what matters most. So you have to be critical about yourself, and you have to possibly even critique the wrong one. So, if you have a team, it's all about the quality and never about the quantity of people. And the first step is identifying those people that are cul-de-sac talent and utilize them. And what I mean by cul-de-sac talent is that is the talent that the people you surround yourself with produce at a high level. And they're task-driven employees who keep your business running at a high level. So these people are the ones you need to lean on and you need to give more tasks to. And, those who you utilize that are not operating at a high level, they their hours might need to be lessened, or they may even need to be able to be, cut. And then if you are a solo agent, you are the leverage. You have to take in a lot of self-accountability to make sure that you're providing all the tasks that on a daily basis to where you can be successful. And leverage systems. So it's time to tackle your systems and how things are done. I know at the Nett Group, we have so many systems in place, and Michael was up front when the shift started that we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we may pull this back for the time being, but this is making our systems more efficient. We've found some gaps, and we're gonna basically, again, go back to basics, do the things that we know works, and continue on through the shift. And so you have to ask yourself what needs to be accomplished to hit your minimum goals of sales and service quality without any extra expense. So you've got to be efficient and very effective during this whole process. So maximize the use of everything and everyone. And our motto is whatever it takes whenever it's needed. So a lot of self-accountability and, work smarter. You got to work harder. And, and for all single agents there, is how can I leverage my business? And again, I went over these with the 8, but what system or person can you leverage to focus on the 6 competencies of business? And again, that's whatever is needed, whatever it takes. If, we have a virtual assistant, we partnered with loan officers, contract to close, title, sign runners, whatever it takes to where you can spare up some time for you to lead generate and grow your business, you need to do. And the second option is you can join a team where leverage is provided. You know, a high level team is going to provide you with the leverage to succeed. And so to kind of give you a story, you know, one of the reasons I talked about leverage is because I feel I have a really good experience. I started in 2018 and I was a solo agent and definitely, you know, the real estate roller coaster. I had a few closings, had some early success, and then was just going up and down. And I'm pretty sure that most of us have probably have been on the roller coaster, and it's not fun. And so I reached out to the market center, and they got me in touch with Michael. And so in 2018, I joined the Nett group. And then all of a sudden, I was provided with an administrator, a stager, a database manager, a sign runner, and I had all this extra time to focus on my business. I had clarity, and I was in a positive work environment. And so I was given the systems to basically, the only option I had was to succeed. You know, and as a result of being leveraged, you know, and I'm not bragging, but I feel that it's a good example because I went from someone that was a very low, a low earner or low sales volume, and as a result of last year, closed 45 homes. I flipped 6 homes. I bought 4 Section 8 properties, and I paid $110,000 off in debt. And that's because when you have the intensity or the focus of coming to work every day, having a schedule, being in a positive environment, you're able to succeed at a very high level. And that's what leverage can do for you. And so I would tell anybody to build as much leverage as you can in your business. That way you can be successful. And it's going to make your life and the opportunities in your life more abundant.
Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about lead generation. Just to piggyback off what Ryan just said, without the leverage, lead generation is very difficult. So that's the number one reason why we have leverage, so we can focus on the thing that's going to make us money and make us the most money, which is going to be lead generation. So this is actually a quote from the book Shift. If your ship doesn't come, swim out to it. Right now, none of our ships are going to come. We're not going to be handed referrals and tons of referrals like we did maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Right now, we're going to have to hunt for business, and we're going to have to hunt for the motivated business. So the lead generation business. So actually in real estate, there's 2 separate businesses. There's the lead generation business, and then there's also the helping people with their real estate needs business. And the most important part of the lead generation business is script and dialogue. So drop in the chat if you want to, how often are you practicing your scripts right now and practicing your dialogue that you're having with either potential sellers or potential buyers? Because that's really the most important thing right now, because we all need to be lead generating at a high level, especially during a shift. And you're honestly going to get beat out by the people that are practicing scripts every day, because they're going to sound the best on the phone and the best in person or on a Zoom call when they're able to set that appointment. And they're going to be the ones that are closing, and you're going to get beat out by them. At the end of the day, lead generation is most important. So like I said, we're looking for the people that are motivated. You can aid, but you can't motivate. So our goal right now is to find the people that are motivated. If someone's out looking for a house during a pandemic, or someone needs to sell during a pandemic, that means they're very motivated, because most people aren't going to do so. So we need to help them aid their motive to get to their next house, or to get their house sold so they can get to the next one. And when you are lead generating, you schedule your lead generation, you need to make sure that you're protecting that time and making it a number 1 priority. So it's a daily thing. And if for whatever reason it's going to be that you absolutely have to delete that time or remove that time from your calendar, what you erase, you must replace. So say 8 o'clock in the morning, your kid just starts getting sick or something happens that you can't control, you need to make sure that you push that time back later to the day. So say it's an hour from 8 to 9, you need to make sure that you push that back from 1 to 2 later in the afternoon, because it's very important time. And maybe a month ago, you could have got away with just taking this time out of your calendar and skipping lead generation, but now it's crucial that you must do it every day if you still want your business to survive and even thrive during this market. So the 3 action steps to lead generating. So the first step is stop doing what doesn't work. So what I want everybody to do, this is a great exercise actually from the book Shift, is write down the top 10 lead generating avenues that you're using, whether that's calling expireds, calling for sale by owners, emailing people, doing direct mail. Write down the top 10 things. And what I want you to do is rank them from 1 to 10 and cross out the bottom 5. The reason you should do this is because chances are you're going to get the most amount of business from those top 5, and you should actually double down on those top 5 so you can get as many leads as possible and can convert as many leads as possible. So step 2 basically goes hand in hand with step number 1. Once you figure out those 5 things that are working, figure out which ones work the most and do those things the most. So if you're calling expireds and you're seeing great success from that, make sure you do that the most and still do the other 4 things or even do the other 10 things, but focus on that one the most. And then step 3 is ramp it up. So double down on your lead generation. If you were only having 40 contacts a month ago, and 40 contacts is what it took to get your appointment goal, right now it might take you 300 contacts or 100 contacts. It's going to take you more chances because we're finding the motivated people, not just anybody. It's going to be a lot harder to find the motivated people. So it's going to take more contacts, obviously. And just one thing to piggyback off the motivated people, houses are still selling. And in the last 30 days, over 4,300 homes actually went under contract. So stuff's still happening in the market and there's still motivated people out there. Our goal is just to find those people that are motivated. And this is another quote from Gary Keller. This is actually something that he would hang up in his office while he did lead generation. And it basically says, until your number 1 priority is done, everything else is a distraction. So your number 1 priority every day should be lead generation, and you shouldn't focus on anything else until you're completely finished. Even if you get a contract or if someone calls you about business, you can put that to the side until your lead generation is completely done.
Yeah, I just want to, let me comment on that real quick, Joe, because I just want to point something out. I feel like a lot of us, when we're lead generating, like a contract comes in or an inspection notice comes in or something comes in and we stop our lead generation to go service that, whatever that thing that just came in was. And that's the wrong way to do it. Same way if you get an appointment set, if you're making calls and you set your appointment, don't stop everything and then focus on that appointment and getting ready for it. Finish your lead generation. Like everything else right now is a distraction. And generating new business is almost more important than servicing current business. So you get on the phones at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever it is, to start making calls. Email comes in with a contract at 8:15. Ignore that for your next hour. Finish your lead generation, stay focused, and then you can go call your client and work on that contract. Don't stop everything right now. Because you keep the momentum going as well. And that's what we want. We like on our team 1 hour time blocks of lead generation, because I know everybody says 3 hours, but who on here has ever lead generated for 3 hours in a row? Like I have, and it's terrible, right? So I'm all about 1 hour, short, focused sprints. Get 1 hour, be super focused, make your calls, set your appointments, get your nurtures, work on whatever business needs to be worked on, and then do another hour later and stay focused in your lead generation time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
I was going to say another reason that we don't want to interrupt our lead generation time is we're very big on filling the pipeline as having as many opportunities as possible, because we know, especially right now, deals are going to die. So if we just focus on one appointment or just one contract, what happens if that falls apart? We have nothing else. So that's why we want to make sure we're being religious and sticking to that time. So then that way, if one deal falls apart or even 3 deals falls apart, we have 5 or even 10 more possible deals in the pipeline that we can close in the next 30 to 90 days. So we're always focusing on filling the pipeline. And as to Michael's point, as we focus on 1 hour increments on the dialer, and the reason for that being is the first 4 seconds on the call matter most. This is when you're going to really win someone over or you're going to lose someone over. And the acronym that I like to use is called C. It's sharp, enthusiastic, and authoritative. And this is how you need to sound the first 4 seconds on the call if you actually want to win that person over. So if you're just sitting in a chair on the dialer making calls for 4 hours, chances are you're not going to sound like all 3 of these, and you're not going to be able to win the person over and actually set the appointment. So you need to make sure that when you're on the call, you're focused, your intention is to set an appointment, you're sharp, enthusiastic, and authoritative. You're a force to be reckoned with, and you're ready to set appointments. So lead conversion. In a shifting market, conversion matters most, especially when what you need most is appointments with motivated buyers and sellers. Lead generating without converting is just like fishing all day and catching no fish. Without an appointment, conversion hasn't happened. So the biggest thing that we need to focus on when we're making our calls or doing whatever lead generating it might be is to set appointments. Obviously, we still want to focus on our long-term business if you plan on being in the business for more than a year, but our number one priority or number one goal right now is to set appointments. And that's what we should be focused on whenever we are lead generating, whether that's calls, emails, texts, or whatever strategy you may have. It's just all about setting appointments.
One thing I want to add there, Joe, is that on conversion as well, keep in mind that 2% of sales are made from your first phone call. So if you talk to 100 people, and you're good at your script and you've practiced it, and you sound good, you can hopefully expect to get 2 appointments out of that. That's 2 out of 100 contacts. So keeping that in mind, 80% of our business comes from the 5th to 12th contact. So talk to somebody once, we may need to talk to them 5 more times or even 12 more times to convert them to an appointment. That's why it's so important that right now we're focusing on little wins. And little wins are when you're lead generating. Of course, we want to set the appointment. But if you didn't set an appointment, what did you do throughout the day? Well, you added 5 people to your database. You've added 5 people to your database that have said, yes, in the next 12 months or sooner, we're looking to do something. That's all future business for you. That's going to pay you and feed you for years and years and years to come. And that right now is why we're going through, we have about 14,000 people in our database. We're going through all of our database people right now, reaching out to them, looking at old internet leads too. We do a lot of internet lead generation. That's one thing too, is a pipeline or a pillar. We talked about it on our Empower Hour call this morning. Internet leads right now are getting super cheap because so many people are pulling back on spending on Facebook. Use that Facebook lead accelerator and command to start generating leads. Keep in mind though that an internet lead that comes in off Facebook is 12 to 18 months from buying a house most likely. So you've got to nurture these people. A Zillow lead might be further along in the process because they're asking for information or wanting to go see a house. They're going to be further along in the process. So when working leads like this, you have to be willing to nurture them along. But get into your database right now because there's a lot of gold in there you can be plucking out and finding those motivated people.
Agreed. So getting to the table or getting on the Zoom call, especially right now, it's more than likely going to be getting on a video conference or a Zoom call. So scripts ensure that you will get an opportunity to get to the table and from the prospective buyer or seller. So that's why I was asking everybody how often they practice scripts or do role play, because without the scripts, and if you don't even have a script, I highly recommend that you need to go find one. Obviously, you can just go on Google and type whatever search you're looking for, first sale by owner script, expired script, circle dial script, and find the one that you sound best at and start practicing that over and over again. So that way you can actually start to convert appointments and you're not just shooting from the hip trying to figure out what to say and how you sound. So make sure you pick a script and you're practicing it every single day. And scripts only work if you practice them and use the proper tonality. So this is an interesting statistic. 9% of communication is actually words. 91% of communication is the tonality that you use with those words. So that's why it's so important to make sure that you have the scripts internalized and memorized so you can match those words and scripts with the proper tonality so that you're able to convert appointments and get nurtures at a very high level. And your conversion will actually go out the roof once you're able to master the proper tonality matched with the proper script. And don't be afraid to go for the close. If you don't go for the close, someone else will. So if you're the first person to call them and you can't close them or you don't even try to close them, someone else, I can assure you, is going to call them later. And that person may be practicing scripts and not going to be afraid to close. And they're going to get the appointment and they're going to be the ones who get the check and go to the closing table and you're not. So this is actually the lead conversion process. So there's actually 3 steps to this process. Number 1 is going to be capture. So capture basically means getting their information or where are you getting their information. So in our particular case, we actually get our information on Mojo or on the dialer. And there's a few different sources that you can use. We actually use Vulcan to get that information and have it dropped into the dialer. So that would be our capture. And then connecting would be actually connecting with these leads that we have captured. So do we have a conversation with them or do they just hang up on us as soon as we talk? That wouldn't necessarily be connecting, but having a conversation with a lead that we've captured would be connecting. And then our goal with every single lead that we connect with is to obviously close for the appointment. And as Michael said, it might not be on the first call. 2% of appointments are set on the first call. So we might need to follow up with some of these people that we connect with several times before we can even set an appointment, especially right now. If we're connecting with people that aren't motivated, within the next 1 to 2 months, but maybe they're motivated in 6 months to a year, we need to make sure that we're following up so we can eventually close for the appointment. And this is actually an interesting statistic from the National Association of Realtors, is that 2/3 of all buyers and sellers only interview one realtor, which is pretty crazy. So all you really need to do is just set an appointment, and you have a very high chance to be able to work with that person. And half of the remaining 1/3 only interview 2 agents. So that just goes to show you how important scripts and dialogue are, because if you can just simply set the appointment, you have a very high chance to be able to convert that person to a client that works with you and could be a lifelong client. And the battle is almost won by getting an appointment before someone else does. So the 310. So this is something that I like to use kind of in my head, since I know the scripts and have most of them internalized. While I'm on the call, I like to think about 3 different things, because mostly the people that you're talking to have never heard of you before. Some people have never even heard of our company, Keller Williams, even though we're one of the biggest real estate companies. Some people have never heard of us. And some people might have had a bad experience with Keller Williams if they are an expired or a canceled listing. Maybe they work with a different Keller Williams agent and they just had horrible service or bad communication with them, and they just absolutely hate Keller Williams. So our goal is to get each 3 of these on a level of 1 to 10 to 10 on their certainty level, because they don't trust our service, they don't trust you, and they don't trust your company. So for example, Michael, is it all right if I run this with you? If you want to give me the objection, oh, you're with Keller Williams, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Our last agent was Keller Williams, and we're not going to work with Keller Williams anymore.
Okay, Michael, I can completely understand that your last agent was with Keller Williams. And may I share something with you?
Sure.
So you see, Michael, there's thousands of Keller Williams agents, and we are actually all independent contractors and do business in very different ways. And I'm actually on a team of 15 full-time professional realtors that has a very aggressive and proactive marketing strategy. And I would love to share this with you. And it would only take about 15 or 20 minutes if you'd be open to that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I don't think we're going to stick with Keller Williams just because of the experience we had.
Yeah, and I can completely understand that you had a poor experience. And I can assure you, Michael, that we do business completely different. And we have a very aggressive marketing strategy that has been proven to work, especially with people who haven't been able to get their house sold effectively the first time or sometimes even the third time. We're very good at coming in, putting those houses back on the market and getting them sold for as much money as possible. And you do want the most money possible, don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And that's why we need to meet. So how would it sound if we at least just set up a Zoom video conference for 15 or 20 minutes? And if at the end of the day, if we sound exactly like that Keller Williams agent you worked previously, then you have no obligation whatsoever to work with us.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me talk to my wife. Can I give you a call back?
Yeah, you can certainly give me a call back, and your wife is a huge part of this decision. So why don't we at least do this, Michael? Why don't we at least pencil in a time? And then if you talk to your wife in between then and now, and she says no, or she's completely not on board, just feel free to give me a call back and we can always reschedule. So how would tomorrow afternoon or at about 4 or 5:30 sound for you?
Yeah, I guess that's fine.
Okay, I'll pencil you in for 4 o'clock and I will email you a link later for the Zoom call.
Perfect. Cool.
Sounds good.
Good job.
So
yeah,
really it's just
script.
about, exactly, it's just a script. And at first on the scale of 1 to 10 for the company, he probably had KW or Keller Williams at 1. And I had to get that 1 all the way up to a 9 or a 10. So I have the ability to actually sit down with him or get on a Zoom conference with him to actually show him what we will do differently to get his house sold or to get him into his next house. So it's just important to gauge these 3 things, but that's why it's also important to know your scripts. So then you can have these little dialogues going on in your head on, hey, how much do they trust me? How much do they trust my company? Do they not trust my service? And you need to figure out which ones they don't trust, so you can get that up to as much certainty possible with that prospect, so you're able to actually set that appointment and get in front of them to make them a client.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out too, Joe, that like a year ago, you probably wouldn't have gone for it like that.
Exactly.
Right? Like you would have said, no, I'm not happy with Keller Williams. I'm not working with you. You would have said, okay. And that's what I used to do back in the day too. And it's when you practice this stuff every single day, all of a sudden it just starts flowing out of you. Like you don't have to think about it. It just starts to happen because it's internalized, and you know that there are only a handful of objections you're ever going to get when calling an expired or a for sale by owner or an internet lead. And if you know how to overcome those objections, you start to convert at a much higher level. And at the end of the day, especially in a market like this, conversion's everything. Because right now, the people that are looking to get their home sold or looking to buy a house, they want to work with the professional, not necessarily the person that's just a family member or a friend. They want somebody that's going to get the job done for them. And so when you become that professional and you've internalized your scripts, you deliver and convey that confidence, you're going to convert at a higher level. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. Is you need to have the mindset that I am the best person for this client to work with. There's no other realtor that's going to care more, that's going to do a better job, that's going to put more time and effort in. I am the only one that can help them. And when you start to adapt that mindset, it comes from a confidence you get of practicing this stuff over and over and over and over again and getting those wins consistently on a daily basis. And when you develop that confidence, you go into those appointments and you can convert and nothing can stop you. And that's where everybody needs to get to, but you can't get there if you're not practicing these things every single day. So
Geoff, you want to take over here?
Yes.
Can I answer one question? Can I answer one question real quick?
Yeah.
Somebody just put, so you get the Zoom call, you still don't see the house for pricing purposes. I guess you get in the house after. Yes. So what we're doing there is we set the Zoom call, do our whole presentation. Our team members now are doing the presentation. And then from there, we can't determine a price without seeing the home. So what we'll do is we'll set up a time after the fact. We get the listing agreement signed. Our broker suggested just putting in, like if it's a $200,000 house, you can put in $1 million for the sale price and then write in a clause essentially saying to be determined essentially. And then you can set up a time where if they're not comfortable with being in the house with you, you could say, okay, I'm going to come over at such time and you can, be outside or whatever you want to do. I'll walk through the house real quick and then we can figure out a price. So set the appointment, get the listing contract signed with the TBD on price, and then go check out the house and get a price set established.
All right.
Take over.
Yep, absolutely. So the next section I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into is the internet lead generation specifically. So building off of what Joe had just mentioned. So throw in the chat right now if you're doing some type of internet lead generation, if it's Facebook, if it's Zillow, if it's Realtor.com, whatever that might be, just throw it in the chat real quick. If you haven't done anything with internet lead generation, throw that in the chat as well too, so I can get an idea of where we're at as far as who's on the call. The biggest thing with internet lead generation, especially right now as we're going through a shift, is that success on the internet, it is not measured in clicks, it's not measured in visitors, it's not measured in page views, and it's not measured in registrations. The only thing that you should be measuring, especially right now, and this should go even if we weren't in a shift, is how many appointments are we getting that we can do business with through our internet lead generation. And if you don't know what that number is, you need to make sure that you're building a tracking system in place so that you know how many leads are being generated, but ultimately how many appointments has that actually led to, which means that you could then extrapolate that a step further and say, okay, this is the number of closings that we have been able to get specifically because of the internet leads that we have generated. If that is not completely clear to you so that you can calculate your return on investment, especially for the internet leads, you need to make sure that you're putting a special focus on that if you're going to continue to do internet lead generation throughout this shift. Go ahead to the next slide there, Joe. For internet leads especially, there are 3 steps that you can think about going through this model. And the very first is, number 1, where are you sending them to? So you have to be able to create and maintain some type of internet presence. And whether that's you sending Facebook leads to either a Facebook page or to an actual website or to an app, you have to make sure that you have content that's engaging and tools that people can use so that you're creating value for those leads. It's not necessarily enough just to throw a house up there, throw some pictures and say, okay, come look at these pictures of the house. Because right off the bat, one of the very first objections that you'll start to get when you do eventually talk to these people is, oh, I was just looking at that really cool picture that you posted. So think further into that. Spend some time actually being strategic with your lead generation and figure out ways that you can be valuable and capture their interest by creating your own internet presence, whether that's the brand for your own personal self or for your business or for your team. All of those concepts apply. You have to have some sort of presence. The second step in this generation model is the lead generation for the traffic. So where are all of these people actually coming from? A lot of people are using Facebook, and the reason is because within KW Command, we have that Facebook lead generation accelerator. And I would say that if you have not looked at that currently, you should definitely take a look at it. But understand that in a shifting market, it goes back to the very first thing that Michael said on this call, is that you have to do what you know works right now. Now is not time to be creative and really test a bunch of new things out and start figuring things out that cost money. Especially right now, you have to tighten the reins and make your internet lead generation better if it currently exists, or have a rock solid plan in place that you know that you can generate traffic and leads, and you're going to be able to eventually close them so that it actually impacts your business. And keep in mind too, Michael mentioned the timeline that your typical internet lead is going to have. These are people that are going to require some type of nurturing. They're not going to be ready to raise their hand, jump up and go necessarily look at houses tomorrow. Now, if you're spending money on Zillow and you have leads that are saying, yes, I want to schedule a tour and I want to go see this house right here, right now, then you better be the very first person that gets in front of that lead so that you can eventually close that deal. The third step, though, in this model is the one that we have to pay the most attention to. And this is where we capture, connect, cultivate, and close. So the 4 C's. Remember that in order to do this, we have to have something that we're throwing out there in order to really offer them. And so at a bare minimum, it should definitely be some type of visual, some type of picture, something that we can add to get them at least interested to capture information. The one thing that I would caution everyone with too is that if you're generating leads and the only thing that you're getting is an email, you're making it much harder for you to convert that lead. You have to somehow figure out a way to get a phone number. And the phone number will eventually lead to you being able to send a text message, to give them a phone call, to leave a voicemail, and continue to follow up with that process so that you're able to generate those leads. So if you're only collecting emails, I want to challenge you, especially as we go into this shift, be thinking more strategically around how can you also capture those phone numbers, because your conversions will go up drastically, as will your quality of conversations. The quality of conversations are key, and that's critical, especially because now you're going to have a lot of people that are already going to throw out the objection, oh, I want to wait until all this is over. And that's something that we have to handle and be able to be strategically kind of maneuvering around. And at the end of the day, it ultimately comes down to scripts. Dana, I know you just posted, what are you guys doing to get phone numbers? So for our lead generation model, the ads that we're running are on Facebook, and they're through our Real Geeks website. Through Real Geeks and the ads, we give them the option. They have to have a phone number that they type in as kind of like their username and password along with their email in order to be able to see the homes that they're looking at. So they're looking for a set specific criteria, or they're looking at a search. In order for them to access what that specific house looks like, they put in their email address, they use their phone number as a password, and then they're in and they're good to go. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Joe. These are the 4 different lead capture strategies, and this is a picture that comes from Shift. And I know there's a lot of text on this picture, so I want to basically sum it up by saying there's a difference between registrations, so the number of people that register, the number of emails that you get, and the number of appointments that you're setting. But the key critical factor here is that you have to know 100% how many registrations is it taking on average for you to set an appointment. Because if you don't know what that number is, or you think you know, or you think you have an idea, oh, I think it's 100 or 150 or 200, it's not doing enough to impact your business right now. If you're able to say it takes 157 registrations before I can set an appointment, then you're able to figure out different ways that you can do one of 2 things. You can either increase your number of registrations, or according to this chart, depending on which little phase or bucket that you're in, so either number 1, upfront, number 2, pre-results, number 3, limited results, or number 4, open search with drip, you're able to tailor when you're requiring someone to register on your website. And so in the very first example, in the top part of that funnel there, visitors who have to register on your website before entering a search criteria, you're going to get a ton of people registering. However, you're also going to get a ton of people that leave and go register on some other site that doesn't necessarily put that barrier up front. So keep that in mind. The folks that have to do that up front though and register are the least likely to necessarily set an appointment, because you're not even letting them really use your website. The second is pre-results. And pre-results basically means that a visitor can type in their criteria, but in order for them to see the search results, you're making them register on the website. And so this is where you're starting to kind of figure out your balance. Do I need more people to register because I don't have anyone registering? Or am I getting enough people to register that I can at least reach out to them, I can have conversations with them, and I can start setting appointments? If you're getting a ton of registrations, you might be looking at step number 3, which is limited results. This is where visitors can enter a criteria, they can view limited information, but in order for them to get all of the results of their search, they have to then register. So these people, you're at least engaging, you're showing them quite a bit of different criteria results that they've typed in. And now you're getting to the point too where they could potentially figure out a way to register for those types of leads. And then the final one there is visitors can search without registering, but eventually to save their searches, they have to register. And this is what we require on our website. We can set them up on a saved search, and then we can also set them up to be able to follow up with them. So let's run a quick script for internet lead. So Ryan, you want to be an internet lead?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right, ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, this is Geoff with the St. Louis Real Estate Exchange. You had signed up on our website looking at some homes for sale, and I wanted to see how soon you were looking to make a move.
I was just on there looking.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of houses were you looking at?
Somewhere in Baldwin, I think we looked at a house on Main Street.
Somewhere in Baldwin on Main Street? Excellent. What does that kind of perfect house look like for you in Baldwin?
We want a ranch, at least 3 bedrooms, 2 bath.
A ranch, at least 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? Okay, excellent. What kind of time frame were you looking to be able to make that move into Baldwin?
We were just looking, it'd probably be over a year.
A little bit over a year or so? Gotcha. What's significant about being over a year time frame?
I don't know. We really haven't ever set a time frame.
Gotcha. Were you aware that the interest rates are at historic lows right now, and buyers are actually able to save quite a bit of money on locking in those low interest rates in order to make a move sooner?
We kind of been watching, but we still have to sell our house.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's actually a great time to be a seller as well, too. We're experiencing extremely low levels of inventory, so our sellers are actually netting top dollar, and many of them are getting even higher than their asking price. Would you be interested in finding out how much your home could sell for in today's market?
Yeah, maybe. Let me talk to my wife, though, and I'll call you back.
Yeah, I definitely want your wife to be a part of the conversation. One thing that we're offering as a convenience to our clients right now are Zoom conference calls, meaning that we can actually just log onto the computer and go over some of the values of what your homes would sell for. And then you can talk to us about the condition and updates that you've made. Would you be able to maybe talk that over with your wife, and we can pencil in a conversation for later this week?
Yeah, that'd probably work.
Okay, excellent. So are the mornings or afternoons better for you?
Afternoons.
Afternoons, great. I do have availability tomorrow afternoon at 2. How does that work?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Excellent, great. See you then. Cool, and then I would get his information. So that's a simple way to have these internet lead gen scripts that you have to be able to adapt on the fly, because I know I talk a lot about circle prospecting, and it's the same way. We're calling around neighborhoods. Internet leads can be the exact same frame. So you have to understand that maybe you're working with a buyer that doesn't need to sell. Maybe you're working with a seller that doesn't have to sell. And the biggest thing there, so exactly what you just said, Nash, how would you close him if he was just a buyer with no home to sell? I would focus number 1 on interest rates. And then I would focus number 2 on if I could save you money on your monthly payment from what you're paying in rent, would that be a benefit for you? And they would normally 99 times out of 100 say yes. And so now you've got them. You're talking money, you're talking savings. So you have to add value. You really have to kind of pivot, because most people, especially too, like first-time home buyers, they don't really understand what low interest rates necessarily mean for them on a long-term scale. But if you can tie it into figuring out their monthly payment, if you can lower a monthly payment, and then also figure out when different lease ends, find out their motivation, just like Ryan said in the chat there as well too. You've got to do a lot of undercover work. So you have to be a detective in a sense. And that's why I really like working with those internet leads. Go ahead to the next slide, Joe.
Keep in mind too, real quick, he was repeating and affirming everything Ryan said. So Ryan would say, we're looking at homes in Baldwin. You're looking at homes in Baldwin. He's repeating and affirming everything, because when you don't repeat back and affirm that you acknowledging what they said, it sounds like you're interrogating them. If you're just going down the list of your script. So it's important to get into rapport by repeating and affirming what they're saying. And that will make the call go a lot more fluid and smoother.
And that was one thing that we learned as a team when we went through the hostage negotiator FBI book, is that you don't want to ask a bunch of why questions, because why makes it feel like it's interrogating. So I didn't ask Ryan, well, why do you want to wait a year? Because now he's on the defensive trying to explain to me why he has to wait a year. So when you frame it as what is significant about you wanting to wait a year, and he says, well, I don't know, we just never really picked a time frame. A lot of times these things are thrown out there as kind of a defense mechanism anyway. It's always the same concept that we talk about when you go to the store and somebody asks, do you need any help? You usually say no. It's the same concept. We know that we're going to get hit with the objection, oh, I'm just looking. So you never want to let that stop you in your conversation. Find out more what they were looking at, find out more what the perfect home looks like for them, and then talk about time frame and motivation. If you guys have any other questions, throw them in the chat too. And then this is an example of kind of our process of after the lead signs up. So they receive an automated email, they receive an automated text message. We also make sure that we get an automated text message notification directly to our phones, and we call them every single day for 10 days until we get a hold of them. The biggest thing that I want to talk about too is that don't forget about your leads that are older than 10 days. So those of you that have internet leads that you can re-engage with, that you've been generating over the past couple of years. So us as a team, we've generated thousands of leads over the last 2 years. We're able now to call back through the people that signed up on the website in Q1, Q2, Q3 of 2019, and even 2018, honestly, too, and we've had really good success. I just converted one of our internet leads that I talked to back in February. She was looking at a condo in Clayton. It was finally her time. Her time frame originally was at the end of summer, but we were able to move that up to a May closing. So realize that internet leads aren't necessarily the fastest thing. That one in particular took 4 months, but don't let that stop you. Always have different conversations as well too. And that pretty much sums up everything that I've got for the internet leads there.
All right, so we'll go into seller pricing strategies. And we all know when the price is right, the home sells. So we're going to talk about why price is so important. And here's 5 factors that we see on a daily basis is window of opportunity, the 3 factors for pricing a home, why pricing is so important, the cost of pricing in a shifted market, and 21 days of momentum. All right, Joe. And so the window of opportunity, this is your new listing just hit the market, and this is the first time that someone sees a property. Is called the window of opportunity because it's creating the single best chance of creating that first impression. And this is the moment that is the best time a seller can send a message to the market that we're priced right and we're serious to sell. And we all know when you take an overpriced listing, you make the wrong first impression, it's going to cost you and the seller time, and it's going to cost you and the seller money. And so 3 factors for pricing a home. When you're going on a listing appointment, regardless if you know the area, 100% or you've been in the area a little bit, you have to do your research. And it starts with you being the pricing expert for that area. The sellers need your expertise. They need your confidence in knowing what their home is going to sell for. And it starts with, if you just show up with a CMA that you did 10 minutes before, you're probably going to either overprice or underprice the home. So start with location, size, amenities, go a little bit deeper, go into the pendings, the expireds, withdrawns, use your tools in Maris. The AVMs, the RPR. And one thing that we really stress at the Nett Group is we preview neighboring properties. So if there's any other homes on the market, when we're at the listing appointment and they're giving us a price objection, we can automatically say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I previewed these homes on your behalf, and this is why this home sold for $300,000. And why we're recommending that your home be below that because your home lacks this, this, and this. And it makes us look like we're the expert. And so the second thing is condition. You have to take into account what your seller home has, how it differs or compares to those other homes you previewed or what's on the market. And the most important is how you see the buyers viewing your home, because we've all went into a listing appointment and it was the HGTV house and it had everything updated and it was amazing. You already were counting your commission check before you ever left the listing appointment because you knew it was going to sell the first day. And then you walk into the other listing appointment that they want the same amount that the home you just sold for, and it has the original countertops, the pink tile in the bathroom. It's outdated. You have to be able to overcome that price objection, and you're already going to know that that objection that the buyer's going to give you before your list, you're going to have to overcome with price, because there's two things that sell a home. Number one is price, and the number two is condition. And how you can frame that and overcome that objection is that you frame it as, I'm not telling your house is not worth 300. The market is going to tell you that your home is worth 275. Remember, it's not about you and you being right. It's about the market. So you do not make the market. You just simply show them what the home is going to sell for in this market. So that's what we phrase for. We anticipate the home's going to sell, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, for approximately 275 in this market. And why pricing is so important is because, one, you have your window of opportunity. And we know the window of opportunity, you have the most momentum in the first 21 days. And what we find in that is typically buyers and sellers are out of sync with the realities of the market. So when they walk into that listing, you have the buyer saying, well, I wouldn't give you $300,000 for this house. I would give you 275. And the sellers are the exact opposite, saying they want more than 300,000 because they're out of touch with the market. And so that's where we have to be very strong in our pricing strategies, because we have to price our listings ahead of the market. You know, if we knew where the market was going to be at right now back in January, we probably wouldn't have taken an overpriced listing. We would have priced it accordingly, knowing that everybody was going to be quarantined. So when you price a home behind the market, like 2 weeks ago, you took an overpriced home and it's currently on the market and it's been sitting for 21 days, which is very long in this market. You miss the opportunity curve and the opportunity to get the best price possible. And we know that every day that you're on the market without a contract, you start losing that momentum. And one of the biggest phrases we use for our clients, rather than take an overpriced listing, is, I would rather turn you down now than let you down in 6 months. And that's kind of just a really honest close there, to where the seller understands that we're serious about the price that we're giving them. And then so overpricing, we know in overpricing in a shifted market is you're going to have low showings or no offers. You're going to be asking for price reductions. Your offers are lowball offers. The days on market are creeping up. Your clients are starting to get unsatisfied. And then there's a higher probability that your sellers are actually going to terminate the listing. And at the end of it, they're not happy with you. You lost a client and all the time and money you invested in that listing. Do not take overpriced listings. And then this is exactly the what we talk about, the 21 days of momentum. And so we know that the first 7 days, it's going to have the most visibility. You're going to have the most showings, online views, everywhere. And then after 14 days, that momentum starts to slow. And it's an indication that the market is rejecting your price. You immediately after 14 days in this market need to be working price reductions. Use your price reduction scripts. And then after 21 days, you are now chasing the market, and the price reductions have to be very significant to catch up. And this is a slide of exactly what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Joe. And so this is we show this to all of our sellers. And so we know on step one here, we hit the market, but we were way above fair market value. On day 7, on number 3, the market interest is at its highest, and it starts dipping. And no matter how much price reductions we start doing after day 14, you can see the green line coming down here all the way to number 6. That is the interest tapering off, because now they've seen so many price reductions that they think there's something wrong with the home. And you end up with the sell of the home way undervalued if you just would have priced the home correctly from the start. So that is why pricing is so important, especially in this market when most homes are selling less than 21 days on the market. If you do your research, you price it properly, you're going to have more closings and more happy clients.
So this is one thing too, seller staging strategies. We all know that homes that are staged correctly and look good are going to sell faster. So staged homes on average sold in half the time that non-staged homes did. And staged homes get 6.3% more than their asking price on average. So keeping that in mind, right now, it's more important than ever that we have our homes looking the best they possibly can. So if it's a vacant home, encourage staging. If it's a home that's lived in, we have a staging consultant that always goes out. And right now what we're doing is our staging consultant is virtual staging. Yes, I think the virtual staging, I like it. I would recommend doing that. There's a lot of different sites that you can do virtual staging. For homes that are lived in, though, it's almost more important than a vacant house because we live in our homes. And this is what we tell our sellers. We live in our homes for comfort. Now that we're going to sell your home, we need to stage it for functionality. We need the house to show the best it can show, that we're looking at it from a standpoint of, I'm looking at your home through the eyes of a buyer. And when you look at a display home, you don't see clutter everywhere. You see very simple homes look big. They look spacious. There's not much on the walls. And that's what we need to be doing. So what we're doing right now with our staging consultant is doing FaceTime calls with the seller, walking through the house and giving critiques and suggestions on what to do to get the house ready to declutter it. And you'll be amazed. We have before and after pictures on so many listings that we've taken that it doesn't even look like the same room. And it's all just moving stuff out of the house, out of the area or out of the house to make sure the home's looking the best it can.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the buyer reluctance and overcoming that. I know we're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to go through this quickly here. But for those of you that are running into issues with buyers that are thinking about, oh, I want to time the market or I have to buy at this perfect period of time, use these two lines that you can form them into scripts. Basically, the first is the only way to know that the market has bottomed out is after it's already started back up. And then same thing too here with the market peaking for sellers. The only way to know that the market has peaked is after it started back down. And so on the next slide here, we've actually got an example of one of the better ways to operate, which is in the safe zone. Joe, could you hit the next slide, please? The safe zone here is the map on the right. And on the left are your different points of realization, meaning that you know that you're at the dip once it started to go back up. So there's no sense in trying to time it if you're at the very, very bottom. Same thing with if your seller's trying to time it at the very, very top. The better place to time it is when you're in the safe zone. You know that you're getting good value for the house, for the money, but we have to make a compelling case to the buyers and sellers that we're working with that we are still operating in those zones. And the biggest thing with that is the comparable home values, especially too, even when you're working with just buyers, you need to show them what the comparable homes are selling for when you go to write those offers. It's almost like a reverse CMA in a sense for the buyer that's going to be purchasing that house that we would run with all the documentation and all the different models and all the different values and figures that we use that Ryan touched on when we're pricing for sellers. We want to put that information in front of our buyers. The other thing to keep in mind too is especially for first-time home buyers, we want to make sure that they're comfortable with the amount that they're purchasing the home and the value add. So one of my favorite things to tell them about is the appraisal. The appraiser is going to come in, they're going to appraise the value and confirm that the value that we're writing the offer for is the value of what that home would be worth and making sure that it does appraise. So it's kind of like a third-party check and a third-party confirmation that they're not overpaying for the house. And then that way, too, that puts their mind at ease. Go ahead to the next one, Joe. And then these are the three questions we have to ask ourselves to motivate our buyers and to prioritize. Number one is their ability to buy. What is their financial capacity to purchase a home? It's not to purchase a home 6 months from now. It's to purchase a home that's within the next 1 to 2 months. Those are going to be your hot buyers. That's one of the ways that we label in our database system is someone that's looking to purchase or sell within the next 3 months is a hot buyer or seller. Someone that's in the next 6 months is going to be a nurture, and someone that's 6 months or longer up to a year even is a watch. And so we also have to understand their readiness to buy. We touched on this with their reasons for their motivation levels. If you don't know what your motivation level is with the buyers you're working with right now, that's the number one thing that you need to go do today is figure out what their motivation is, especially if you're having trouble re-engaging with buyers. Maybe you showed them a house 2 weeks ago and they're ghosting you or they're not responding right now. Make sure that you know their motivation level. And that also ties into number 3 there, is that their willingness to buy. So figuring out what their urgency level is. Is it a need to buy or is it a want to buy? If you're working with a buyer whose lease is ending in May, that's a need. They're going to need to buy a house before that lease ends. Otherwise, they're going to possibly have to renew it. The biggest thing for that is figuring out urgencies so that you can match that urgency yourself, make time for them, prioritize with them, and then get them out ultimately looking at houses and show them houses. Go ahead to the next one there, Joe. The biggest thing here too is that the easiest way that we can overcome buyer reluctance is becoming the local economist of choice. And the easiest way is to speak to the numbers of home sales. In St. Louis County in 2020, the month of March, there were 1,133 homes that sold. In 2019, March, there was 1,116 homes that sold in St. Louis County. So that's 14, 15, 16, 17 houses more sold this March 2020 than last March in 2019. Nowhere in the news is anyone saying that. We have to be the local economist. In St. Charles, March of 2020, 550 homes sold in St. Charles County. In 2019, it was 503. 47 more homes sold in St. Charles County in 2020 March than did in 2019. No one in the news is saying that either. It's all doom and gloom. You need to know these numbers like the back of your hand and be able to use them to help motivate your buyers and sellers, because it's like how we kicked this call off. Homes are 100% still selling. And in those 2 examples, more homes sold in March this year than did last year. And then tapping into their why ultimately helps you overcome buyer reluctance. This is all things that it's our job to do right now. We have to motivate, we have to speed up timelines. And also too, for buyers that are saying, oh, I want to wait till the end of summer, it's not out of the ordinary right now to write a closing that's 45 days, maybe even 60 days from now. So do anything that you can to help your buyers that you're working with at least lock down a house, because we do not know what the next 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months looks like. And that's why it's even more important now to start closing business and overcome that buyer reluctance now, instead of waiting when we don't know what exactly is going to be happening in the future. Michael, we can't hear you.
Now we can, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I keep muting myself. All right, so I wanted to thank everybody for being on today and really appreciate it. I just want to kind of end with this, with basically keep this in mind, right? Tough times will always pass, right? Everybody here is experiencing the same kind of market, the same kind of thing going on. Tough times will always come to pass, and this isn't the end. It's just a setback, right? And so this is just a setback, but what you do every single day is going to determine how you come out of this, right? If you come out of it bigger and better on the other side or not. And you can't expect great results when you're only putting in great effort part of the time. This has to be something that you're adapting to and you're adjusting, and you say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure I succeed, right? All of your shoulds, Tony Robbins talks about shoulds becoming must. All of those shoulds, I should lead generate, I should add to my database, I should go do this, now becomes I must do that. I must lead generate, I must add to my database, I must do. It's all of my shoulds now become must. Now, who's heard the saying, drop it in the comments, who's heard the saying, burn the boats? Anybody heard that before? Got to burn your boats? So burning the boats, right? It's said that it's an ancient Viking. It said that the Vikings used to do this back in the day. The Vikings would burn their ships when they went to attack enemy lands. And it's more famously known for a Spanish conquistador named Hernan Cortez. And who Hernan Cortez was, he was a conqueror. And he went to conquer the Aztec Empire. When he landed his ships and all of his men on the shore, he ordered all of the ships to be burned. All right, and he told his people, his men, that the only way we're ever going to see home is if we win here. And we conquer these and we go home on enemy ships. And it's a mindset that we all adapt now. Now, fortunately for us, our ships are all torched. Whether you wanted to torch them or not, well, there's no retreat for us now. Like, we have no other options. What industry is hiring right now? Unless you're in the medical profession, there's not a whole lot of industries that are hiring right now. So our boats are pretty much torched. And what we need to do now is figure out, how are we going to thrive, survive, and then thrive in this? And one way is you double your activity. You double your focus. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I a person that's in control of my own life or not? All right, you need to really ask yourself that. If there's something that needs to be learned in order to succeed, will I learn it? Is there something that I need to read in order to get better? Is there something I need to do to get better? basically, looking at it from that standpoint, looking in the mirror and how do you appear to yourself? Because from self-discipline, when you're self-disciplined and you're focusing on daily wins, that's what's going to increase your self-confidence. And when you increase your self-confidence, that's when you become unstoppable. You know that no matter what market happens, no matter what happens in the market, nothing can stop you. And it comes from doing the small daily things consistently over time that compound to a massive result. 10 years ago, I had negative $200, $300 in my checking account. I'm in a much different financial space than I was back then in 10 years, in a decade. But you have to put the work in, right? If you want unlimited money in your bank account, you don't have to worry about money anymore. And this thing can go on for 100 years and it won't affect you financially. Those are the things that are possible. But first, you have to believe it for yourself and you have to have your mindset right. And then you have to get into action and you have to do the work every single day, day in and day out. And from that, you start to find your greatness and your creativity starts coming from it. And what you focus on expands and begins to multiply. And there's so much. I'm so excited for everybody in here because I firmly believe that if you embrace some of what we learned today and you start taking massive action, you're going to start to see results and you're going to thrive and nothing will stop you. So thank you all for staying on. How do I stay so positive? I read a book a week at least. I'm trying to do 2 books a week right now because I've got a lot more free time on my hands, right? But figuring that out too, what's important to you? Are you going to use this time to binge watch Netflix? I'm doing a little bit of that too, don't worry. But what am I doing every single day to better myself and to improve myself so I can be a better leader for my team? And I think that's the big thing too, on if you're in a leadership role right now, in the absence of great leadership, your people are going to listen to whoever's talking the loudest. And unfortunately, the media is talking the loudest, or they're talking to somebody that isn't in a good mind space. So as a leader, you have to stay positive. You owe it to yourself. It's your duty. You owe it to your team. You owe it to everybody to be the best version of yourself possible. So thank you all so much. If you have questions, we'll hang out for a few minutes, drop them in. But thank you all. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, Nikki asked, what book are you reading now? Can't hear you, Michael.
I keep muting myself. Atomic Habits is another good one. Yeah, Dichotomy of Leadership. I'm real big into leadership books right now. Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink. And then also Atomic Habits is another one I'm going to start again and read through. How do you ensure you apply everything that you take in when ingesting something? Yeah, you don't. And that's why I read them multiple times. So I read Shift for the 4th time. I finished it last night, or I guess early this morning. But you don't, right? And that's why you read them over and over. I actually posted something on Instagram today that would you rather read 100 books one time or 20 books 5 times? For me, it's how do I read 20 books 5 times and really take in everything it has to offer? Because it's just like they talk about bold or anything like that. What you get from it the first time is not necessarily what you're going to take away from it the second time because you're in a different position or spot in your life. So I'm all about mastering stuff. I want to master stuff. Jack of all trades, master of none. I want to be a master of things, and that's why I continue to read books over and over again. You guys have anything to add on that too? Or what are you guys reading currently?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the reading it multiple times through that helps the most, because every new time that you're going through it, you pick up on something else. And what I try to do, like the first time going through, is figuring out, like I read a lot of leadership, like John Maxwell books. And so I'm figuring out, how do I apply the things that I'm reading? If I can apply 1 or 2 or 3 things that I just picked up on and read, like that's a success for me. But the next time that I read through it, how do I pick up and then apply 1, 2, 3 new things? So don't feel like you have to overwhelm yourself and apply everything, because then you sometimes end up applying nothing. And so that's what I've tried to do, is definitely when I'm reading through John Maxwell books, he always has really good ways to apply certain themes or like certain lessons. And so that's what I try to do, is just break them down and apply them piece by piece.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I just saw too that I got my like 10-year-old picture on there. Thanks, Leo. You didn't put my current headshot. Awesome. Yeah, I was like, what, in my 20s there? That's cool. Yeah, so if nobody else has any other questions, I think we're going to hop off. But thank you, everybody, for being on. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys all soon.